Ben, 2 days of quite strenuous fitness tests, bowling, batting, running, but I understand you're fit to play.
Yeah, back in, fit to play. Worked very, very hard back at home and, made the call quite late for that first test match. Just didn't, quite feel right then. So, having those extra days throughout that test match and then all these prep days, it's given me a good chance to sort of, get myself ready for this one. So yeah, really happy to be back.
A frustrating layoff, a lengthy layoff as well, given that the injury was in August. Hear lots of players who, when they get a bit of an injury, they try and put a positive spin on it. Good to get a bit of time away from the game, freshen up, given the schedules and all that. But I imagine you're at the stage of your career now where test matches are pretty precious. You don't want to be missing them.
Yeah, it's funny, as you're asking the question, that's the first thing that came into my head at my age. Yeah. But I think, look, I had quite a few injuries over my career, and that's part of the job. It's a pretty brutal thing we put ourselves through, and the type of player that I am. But I've always sort of had this mentality as to if I do get injured, I'm always trying to make sure that I'm coming back fitter than when I got injured, if that makes sense. Not from like a injury point of view, but just from a physical point of view. 'Cause I feel that puts me in a really good headspace for my recovery and rehab, because then I've got not only have I got a goal to work towards in terms of getting back on the field, but a goal, away from that as well. And it just keeps me on track, keeps me going, because it is very frustrating being injured. Yeah.
You're coming back as a third seamer, so you made a couple of changes to the team. So are you fully fit to play a full role as an all-rounder? A third seamer might be expected to, say, in England, certainly bowl 15 or 20 overs a day, or will you be looking after yourself?
Yeah, you still got to be sensible. The injury that happened to me is, it's a hamstring. It's a very, important part of the body, especially as an athlete. But I guess playing on a used wicket, sort of, you could look at it, say that does help. You'd like to think that it's going to be more, spin friendly. So we've got, Leachy and Bash, and obviously Ruti can also bowl. But, we haven't bowled the ball on the wicket yet. We're not quite sure. But, you've got to give yourself some kind of clue as to what you think it's going to do. So, yeah, obviously coming back from injury, it does sort of help things before we've bowled the ball, knowing that we are playing on a used wicket.
Yeah, you mentioned the pitch. I think it's unprecedented. It may well be that back-to-back tests are being played on the same pitch. Were you surprised, first of all, and do you have any concerns about it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's the first time I've ever been involved in back-to-back games on the same wicket in Test cricket. Concerns-wise, no. I think we've seen how flat the wicket was the first couple of days, and then obviously it started to, become a little bit, more conducive to sort of, two pace, maybe a little bit up and down with the seamers, and then obviously took to a bit of spin. But yeah, look, we're just going to have to wait and see what happens, and then play accordingly to whatever we've got in front of us.
You've had 4 tests on the sidelines now, watching Ollie Pope in charge. A, how do you think he's done? B, we see him obviously pulling strings on the pitch. What we don't see is the stuff in the dressing room. Has he showed the kind of right amount of sense of authority, I suppose, that you're looking for?
I think authorities, just that word in itself, can come across sort of maybe a bit like a dictator. No one in that dressing room certainly is that. But I think, I said it before when I got asked about this, like being standing captain is almost harder than being captain, because you've only got to do it for a certain amount of games, and you're trying to still push forward what the current captain is doing. Popey's been involved, under my captaincy from day one, so there was a lot of easy and natural ways for him to continue doing that. But I think what he did was he also put his own stamp on things, which was massively encouraged by myself and Baz. And as well, I think it's such a young player who's got quite a lot of experience now. I think having that exposure to being a top order batter plus also being captain will be really, really good for him in the long term. And I think he's done a great job. And you know, his 1% is better than mine, so you can't really have a dig at him for that. You know, winning 3 out of his 4 tests, I think, is an amazing job, and he should be very proud of what he's achieved whilst I've been injured.
And so you've been at most of the test matches, and you've had a different view, really, a view from a distance, which can be a different view from when you're right in there amongst it. Have you seen things looking on from the sidelines that perhaps you hadn't seen before about the way your team plays?
Definitely. When you're out in the middle, there is a few things you don't see or get the chance to observe because you're thinking about other things. But when you actually sit on the sidelines, you realise how committed everyone is out in the field to this really very, very small things, which me and Baz constantly harp on about to everyone. You know,
just given as an example.
Well, the simple things: running after the ball to the boundary. You know, backing the bowlers up. Just all the small things that, in the bigger picture, mean a hell of a lot. You know, when bowlers running in this heat and they, you know, see the ball get hit through the field, and then they see the fielders chasing it, sprinting after it to the boundary, pulling out a dive. They don't always get that, but it's that. It's the sense that we're all in it together that I think is one of the most noticeable things for me, especially when you're the person trying to deliver those words. When you actually get to sit back, stand back, and watch it in action, you realise that what you are saying is working, and it's really hitting home with these guys. And you know, there's no individual bigger than the team, and I think I've really noticed that the 11 guys out on the field, in particular in the field, really embody that. And it's great to see. You know, it's all fine and well doing in England when it's, you know, high teens, low 20s, and it's not as hot. But I think you get a real sense of that togetherness and the team spirit that we got when you get out here in the 40-degree heat. Wicket's not doing much, and you see everyone throwing themselves about, bowlers running in spell after spell after spell. That kind of stuff is, you know, I think signifies that you've got a really good team, atmosphere and environment going on.
Looking back at that first win, you've had many great victories as an England captain. Where does that one rank, given the context and the conditions?
Yeah, look, there's been some great ones, but from my point of view, you know, watching the game unfold as it did, obviously Pakistan put 550 on the board in their first innings. We thought played really well. But I guess one thing that I was very, you know, put a smile on my face as a captain who will be not playing, was the understanding within the group of how we needed to go about the rest of this game for us to win. You know, we didn't look too far ahead. We just took every session, every day as it was. You know, you look at that Root and Brook partnership, that was massive for us. They played unbelievably well, but they knew what they had to do. You know, we ended day 3 in a very good position with those two not out. But everyone knew that job wasn't done yet. We knew we had to bat big to give ourselves the best chance of winning, because you know, going past them and then putting all the pressure onto the opposition in that situation makes it harder for them, because there wasn't really anything for them to sort of do except, you know,
lose the game.
Lose the game.
Yes.
Whereas if, you know, maybe we pressed the accelerator too early, potentially could have brought them back in the game with, you know, only 100, 150 run lead, and then it's a little bit easier for them to go out and play. But getting that big score past them really put a huge amount of pressure on them, and I think everyone noticed that without us having to tell or speak about it. Everyone just knew it, and I'm all massive for this team constantly progressing, and I think that victory last week was another sign that we are progressing as a team, and we're understanding what needs to be done in certain situations in games.